The East Anchorage seat has three candidates, and we shall hear from all three. Let's start with challenger Pete Peterson. Your opening statement, please, Mr. Peterson.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening. I'm Pete Peterson, and I'm running to serve you on the Anchorage Assembly because you deserve someone who will listen and put your needs first. I moved to Anchorage 32 years ago because of the freedom and opportunity Alaska has to offer. And I want to make sure that future generations still have those opportunities. I was proud to serve you in the State House where I fought for better schools, fixing East Side roads, and creating jobs for Alaskans. You have a clear choice in this race. My priorities are lowering property taxes, improving schools, and fixing East Side roads. My opponent has raised property taxes by over $38 million while cutting services and firing teachers. It just doesn't make sense that we're paying more and getting less in return. You can always count on me to stand up for East Anchorage. I'm Pete Peterson, and I'm on your side.
You've been in the legislature, the State House, and now you're running for the Assembly, local government. Why the change of interest?
Well, I was following the Anchorage Assembly last spring when they were debating the new labor ordinance, and I was really shocked and dismayed when the Assembly voted to stop allowing citizens to testify to give their opinions on this new ordinance. It was controversial. And as it turned out, my incumbent opponent in this race cast the deciding vote in that issue. And I thought that was indefensible. Part of the job of any elected official, no matter what level you are, is listening to the people you work for. And when I served in the legislature in Juneau, I had an open door policy in my office. Anyone could make an appointment and come talk to me, and I was happy to listen to them. And there's several reasons for that. One being, obviously, it's part of the job, but you never know where the next really good idea is coming from. And I introduced several pieces of legislation, and sometimes people would come in with more up-to-date information or more detailed information that would help my bills.
How much money have you raised, and who are your major contributors?
I think I've raised in the vicinity of between 65 and 70,000 right now. And I have a lot of small $50, $25, $75 contributors. I've also had some contributions from political action committees. It's the hardest part of running for election for me is raising the money. That's the part I least enjoy. The part I do enjoy is going out and talking to the people. That's what I consider the fun part.
And when you go out and talk to people, voters, I realize it's a kind of a tough deal in March, but what are they saying to you? What's on their mind?
Well, it depends a little bit on what part of the district you're in. I mean, this East Side district is a huge area. There's over 60,000 people. And so issues vary from one part of the district to the other. When I was walking in the southern part of the district, in this part of town, the number one issue that everyone wanted to talk about was the Burgaw extension. And almost to a person, they were all against it. And several of them had told me that they were very disappointed in my opponent, Adam Trombley, because he had cast a vote in favor of the Burgaw extension. And when asked about it later, said that he hadn't heard of anyone that was opposed to the idea. And so obviously he's out of touch with the people, at least in this part of the district.
It's my impression that the decision on the Burgaw the extension is irrevocable. Is that true or not?
Well, I was at the meeting at East High here a month or so ago, and it seemed to me like they had their mind made up. They were talking about construction dates and when they had projected that when it would be finished. And they did have 4 different routes listed on their boards and maps that you could take a look at, but they had made their mind up that they were going to go with the orange route. And they had the projected cost at $19.2 million for 7/10 of a mile of road.
Okay. In your radio advertising, which I hear regularly, you complain that Adam Trombley is smearing you. What is the evidence for that?
Well, I've gotten myself two inserts in the Anchorage Daily News saying, smear alert, look out, my opponent is going to be going negative. He's a career negative campaigner and mudslinger. And he's also mentioned that
The he here is you, I assume, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And he's also mentioned that on his radio ad, that expect me to go negative and I'm a mudslinger and that type of thing. And so I'm a little shocked about that. I've always considered myself a positive person. As a matter of fact, when I was in the legislature, they do skits down there every year to sort of poke fun at us legislators. And the staff members down there dubbed me the Mr. Rogers of the Alaska legislature. So I don't know how I could be so negative and be Mr. Rogers at the same time.
We'll explore that one sometime. The dispute over the Sullivan administration's revision of the labor laws have dominated the Assembly and the Assembly news. Do you support or oppose the changes? If so, why or why not?
Well, I would not have voted for it in the first place, and if elected, I will vote to repeal. And there's been some unexpected, what I would hope are unexpected consequences of this whole situation. And one of those is, and I've heard this from police, firefighters, teachers, many different types of public employees, that the morale amongst our city employees is at the lowest point that they can remember. It's so low that the police department is having a hard time recruiting candidates for their police academies. And the fire department is also losing people.
We should note that it's not in effect at the moment. It's on hold, right?
It's on hold, but just the fact that it's hanging over them makes it hard for recruitment and retaining. People are saying, well, if that's the way we're going to be treated, then maybe I should go look for a job.
What about
in another
moving the
state.
labor law initiative, the public vote to the November ballot? How did you come down on that?
Well, I was a little questionable about that. It was set up to normally be on the April ballot. It would not have cost us anything additional to have it on the April ballot, but by moving it to November, it's going to cost $350,000 to $450,000. And the day before they made the vote, the Assembly made the vote, the Director of Elections down at the state said she wasn't sure how it was going to work because there's no provisions in state law to even allow for a muni and a state election to happen on the same day at the same location. So I'm questioning the judgment of that vote.
You mentioned earlier the police. There have been a number of stories in the media about the reduction of the size of the police force. Do we have an adequate number of officers here in Anchorage to protect the public?
I don't believe we do. And I did a ride-along with the Anchorage Police Department last November on swing shift. And I got to tell you, 10 hours went by in a snap because they were going from one call to the next, and they had very little time to cruise areas to do some sort of preventive crime, activities. No community policing there was no time for that. And so, I've actually heard from people in different parts of my district that they don't feel that, public safety is as good as it should be. And matter of fact, I had a hard time when it got after dark getting people to even open their door to talk to me. Mm-hmm. So, and one lady told me, well, if you don't feel safe in your home, what is the rest of it worth? So obviously public safety has got to be a top priority.
We've had several police shootings in the last year. I think a couple of them in your district, or what would be your district. Some people find them very troubling, some community activists in particular. What do you think?
Well, I've never been through the police training, so I have never been at a point where I felt my life was in danger and I had to protect myself with a weapon. And I'm lucky that I haven't been in that situation. But these officers have been through training, and after these incidents, they've gone through additional training to try to make sure that they're not being overly aggressive and that the public will be protected. So these are unfortunate incidents, and we certainly don't hope that they happen again, but our police officers put their lives on the line on a regular basis. And so we have to trust their judgment.
The expansion and rebuild of the Port of Anchorage has been an endless source of tribulation. Money wasted, delays, pointed fingers. I think colloquialism would be fine to use here. It's a mess. How do we get out of the mess?
Wow, you know, when you're in a hole, the first thing you got to do is stop digging. And I was really surprised recently when they agreed to sign a contract with H2M Hill for $30 million to continue the management of this project while we're in the process of suing them for mismanaging the project prior. That made absolutely no sense to me at all. And you know, you hear from people from time to time, why can't government operate more like a business? Well, I can guarantee you no business would sign a contract with a company that they're suing for failure doing the same project. That just would never happen.
Okay, moving right along here, what is Anchorage's #1 transportation priority in your mind?
Well, in my area of town, it's the rebuilding of the Muldoon Glen Highway overpass. Since they've opened up the new Commons Shopping Center, the amount of traffic going over that overpass is way beyond capacity. Matter of fact, it's doubled in the last 5 years. And now they also have the Veterans Medical Facility over there. Of course, Bartlett High is over there. And it's gotten to the point where it's a public safety problem. When people are driving home from work on the Glen Highway and they take that Muldoon exit, there's been numerous rear-end collisions because cars are back clear out into the Glen Highway. Now, we've been lucky so far, no one's been killed. And so that was one of my top priorities when I was in the legislature on the Transportation Committee. I did get $15 million in a bond that they're using for design and land acquisition. And I have been to meetings and they're down to the final 2 designs, and they'll soon be choosing the final design and moving on to the building phase.
Okay, in a minute or less, alcohol continues to be involved in a disproportionate percentage of crime and disorder. What can be done to reduce the damage alcohol does to our community?
Well, you know, there was a bill that was passed to put a red stripe on the driver's license of people who've had numerous problems in the past with alcohol, so that the people in the liquor industry could recognize these people and not try to sell them alcohol. But I also believe we need to have more rehab facilities available. If someone finally decides that they would like to quit, putting them on a waiting list for 6 to 9 months usually doesn't help, because they may have changed their mind by then, or they may have maybe passed away and had too much to drink in the meantime.
Okay, the number of street people fluctuates, but street people who are homeless are a permanent part of the community. How can we reduce this number, and how can we reduce the friction between street people and the rest of the community?
Well, I actually thought the mayor had a good idea when he was talking about building the center out near Kincaid Park. My only question was whether transportation to and from there was going to be adequate or not. But that type of facility is a step in the right direction, and I think we need to move forward with something like that in the future.
Okay, 30 seconds. If you could change something about Anchorage, what would you change?
Well, we are actually a growing and vibrant city. We need to manage our city like we are a young and growing and vibrant city. And I'm worried that sometimes the current management is managing like we're a city in decline. And if you manage a city long enough that way, it will go into decline. And so I think we need to keep moving forward, and Anchorage has got a great future.
As quickly as you can, your favorite thing about Anchorage?
Well, I love the parks and trails. We are totally fortunate. When I have people come visit here, they're amazed at how many trails, bike trails, parks we have in Anchorage. And we are developing another one right in my backyard. We're turning the old greenhouse property into the Muldoon Park Strip. And that's something I'm very happy about and have been working on as in the legislature and as a member of the Northeast Community Council for many years.
Thank you, Mr. Peterson.